Hey, what's happening? I'm Patrick Act, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to my video. So today I want to talk about the transit of Rahu from Ardira into Mrigasira. So if you're not familiar with Vedic astrology, let me give you a quick rundown. So Rahu is known in Western astrology as a north node of the moon. And north node of the moon is, for one, it's the trickster god, the trickster deity. It also deals with our desires. It's the desires that set your karma for your current life. And so Rahu is changing nakshatras. So in Vedic astrology, nakshatras are the 27 mini constellations that make up the 12 main signs of the zodiac. So each sign of the zodiac has 2.5 of these nakshatras, these mini constellations. In these mini constellations, these nakshatras, they help us to get more specific. So, for example, Rahu, or north node of the moon, being in Gemini. Well, Gemini is 30 degrees across, and Gemini has different parts of it. So we need to know which part of Gemini that is, and we find out what part, then you get more meaning. So Rahu, this trickster, deals with, among many things, he's a master of secrets. He is a master of illusion. He fools us. You know, all of these planets, all of these gods, goddesses are all sort of psychological complexes. They're forces within our minds, within our psyches. So Rahu deals with our ability to basically fool ourselves and to pull the wool over our own eyes and to create illusions for ourselves and basically mislead ourselves. So Rahu deals with that. Rahu also deals with infectious diseases, among other things. And so, for many months now, Rahu has been in Ardira. Ardira is, again, one of these mini constellations that makes up Gemini. Rahu and Ardira is the constellation of basically tragic events. So the symbols for it are the howling storm winds and the teardrop. You know, you shed tears when tragic things happen. So Rahu, this sort of conveyor of infectious disease, was in Ardira. Ardira is also, mythologically, it was the poison that Shiva drank, and actually why in artistic depictions Shiva looks blue. It was this poison that he drank. And the whole story of Shiva drinking this poison was about basically the higher consciousness sort of taking on our karmas, helping us take on our karmas. So our higher consciousness will help us deal with the poison in our lives and within our karmas. So whenever you get Rahu in Ardira, you get some sort of a shocking, spectacular, tragic event. And this happens on 18-year cycles because you have Rahu and Ketu, which are shadow planets. They're basically the shadows of the moon, the eclipses of the moon, and they're always in opposite signs. So when Rahu's in Gemini, Ketu's in Sagittarius. So it takes them 18 years to make a full orbit. So last time Rahu was in Ardira within Gemini was on 9/11, and before that you go back 18 years. You come to about 1983, you had the whole AIDS breakout, you know, the AIDS epidemic. Before that, you go back 18 years, you go to about 1965, and you know, the United States had faked the whole Tonkin Gulf incident as an excuse to go to war. And it was a false flag operation that the Pentagon admitted to doing. And then 18 years before that, you get to about 1947. That was the National Security Act, and that was basically when the United States government told the people that to be safe from the Soviets, we need to set up a national security state. So they had the National Security Act of 1947. And it set up intelligence agencies and national security structures that were very much like what Nazi Germany had and what the Soviets had. And it was all about, so basically we had to become a lot like the Soviets and East Germans in order to basically, fight them and combat them. So, riddle me that one. So something always happens when Rahu comes to Gemini and then goes to Ardira. And so when Rahu moves from Ardira, it goes to another nakshatra, which is Mrigasira. So where Ardira is the poison, Mrigasira is the elixir of life, or the elixir of immortality. So after the poison, you get the cure. And, really, in my opinion, everything, the Cold War was part of the cure. When you look at 1947 as the example. And if you go back to 2001 with 9/11, when Rahu was in Ardira, we had this tragic event of 9/11. And the big thing was, we didn't really understand it. And there were profiteers out in the world that wanted to make money off the whole situation. So in the media ran the fear factor huge, ran a big fear campaign. And in the aftermath of 9/11, we were told that we needed the Patriot Act, we needed to give up our freedoms to be safe from terrorism, and that we needed to put all these weapons companies, Halliburton, Blackwater, Lockheed, Raytheon, General Dynamics, etc. We had to basically put these companies onto corporate welfare where they get guaranteed money from the government all the time. So, and the media is a for-profit business venture. So the sponsors pay for content. They pay for the content they want. So the whole point to this video is that, we're moving from the disease to the cure, moving from Ardira, the poison, to Mrigasira, the cure, the elixir of life, the elixir of immortality. And the whole point is, you can't have the right cure, and you can't have the proper cure unless you know what the disease really is. So in the case of 9/11, we didn't really know what the disease really was, and we were told in the media that millions of Al-Qaeda terrorists, armies of Al-Qaeda terrorists, would invade the United States if we didn't have the Patriot Act and we didn't go to war with these third world countries like Afghanistan and then Iraq. So we didn't understand what terrorism was, and there was this huge fear factor, and we were led to believe it would be basically like a conventional war, like the World Wars or something like that. So we allowed all this stuff to happen, and now all of our calls, our emails, our text messages are all recorded, all under surveillance. There's security cameras everywhere now, and we've given up a lot of privacy and a lot of freedom, a lot of civil liberties. So we didn't understand what the disease, the terrorism was, so we got a cure that didn't work. And Al-Qaeda really had about 200 members worldwide. It wasn't millions of people who can invade the United States and take entire cities over. So a big conventional war with the militaries, with the Air Force and the Navy and all this high technology was not a good cure for terrorism, because they're still at it. And as we speak, the United States military and government is basically getting ready to hand Afghanistan back to the Taliban. And Iraq is a total disaster. So we have nothing to show for that cure that came after 9/11. So we're back at this again. So we have this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 fiasco, and the fear factor is huge. And there are also crisis profiteers like there were back in 2001. In 2001, the crisis profiteers were people like Dick Cheney, Koch brothers, all the usual suspects, Donald Rumsfeld. You had all these people in government who were invested in all these companies, and then they had friends in the private sector that were asking them for big favors so they could make money. So now we have profiteers again, but our profiteers are people like Bill Gates, who he's invested in pharmaceutical companies, and he's pushing them to make vaccines for COVID-19, and he's saying this is the only way out of this whole situation. And Microsoft is also making software that's going to track people who are infected, people who have been vaccinated. So he wants to give us even more surveillance. He even owns a digital currency that's patented with the UN's patent office, the World Intellectual Property Organization, that it's a digital currency that requires a microchip being implanted into the user's hand. So we have profiteers again, but this time the profiteers talk very progressive and very liberal, and they have nice smiles on their face. So 9/11 was a big virtue signaling fest for the pro-military people, for the right wing, and now COVID-19, the response is a crisis response that the left can love, and they get to virtue signal and tell people how things are, just like the right did after 9/11. So it's the same thing, you know, in politics it's just dysfunctional family relationships. So in a dysfunctional family, the two parents blame each other for everything, and they blame the in-laws for everything. So that's how the two parties work. So we need to watch out for this, and we need to not fall into the same trap as 9/11 and basically get forced to ingest a cure that's not the right cure for the situation. And really the right cure for the situation is we need to promote health, and we need to promote strength of the immune system. And a big thing with this COVID-19 is it's not an equal opportunity disease. There's all this fear that anyone can get it. Well, the people who die from it are people with comorbidities, people with lung problems, with cancers, with heart problems, with you name it, with pre-existing health conditions. And really, people of East Asian origin are getting hit harder with this because there's so much biodiversity among different races and ethnic groups. This is why, you know, you take Inuits up in the polar regions. That's why they can live on a diet of blubber and not get heart disease, because they have biodiversity. They have special adaptations because of this diet that they've been exposed to for so many centuries and millennia. So equality doesn't mean that we're all absolutely identical. That's a dumpster fire of an idea. And that's the idea that's being used to spread the fear that anybody can die from COVID-19. That's not true. It's a new disease that academia doesn't understand, that the medical establishment doesn't understand, and it just all hit us at once. So it looks super scary. Just like 9/11 with the terrorism. So we need to watch out for this. So anyway, one of the big points of this video is, so this day, April 22nd, this opens the window for these numbers to start dropping off. So we're going to see less infections, we're going to see less deaths, it's going to start tapering off. It's not going to be immediate, but the window's open. So now this energy is coming from Rahu. Rahu has moved to a different part of Gemini. Again, from Ardira to Mrigasira, from the poison to the cure. So we're going to see this start tapering off. And another thing too, the poison we're dealing with is the fear factor being pushed by the for-profit media, the corporate-sponsored media. Media is not there to tell you the truth because you went to college, you own a home, you were in the military, you have children. None of those reasons. You're not that important. I'm not that important. None of us are that important to people in power. And people with wealth and power lie because they can, and they can make money from lying. That's the way it is. So it doesn't even matter if your parents won World War II. You're not that important. So we're going to have to face that fact. So anyway, part of the poison we're facing right now is this fear factor that's being pushed through mainstream media. And the same people who fund the media as sponsors and advertisers are also sponsors and advertisers for all the politicians, because the politicians need money to run campaigns and to get reelected, and they have constant reelection anxiety, and they always want to keep these corporations who sponsor them happy. So the poison here is the fear factor. So we're going to start seeing the fear factor drop off too. It's not going to go away, but this is going to get easier. Now we're moving into the aftermath stage. And another thing that's been tough about this whole COVID-19 fiasco is it took months. 9/11 was blink of an eye. Those buildings were hit with those aircraft, and they started burning, and it was over as soon as it started. But this has taken months to unfold. So, like I said, the fear is not gone, and the media is going to keep pushing fear, and the politicians are going to keep pushing fear because their corporate sponsors want people to be afraid because they want to sell vaccines that haven't gotten the full FDA-required 3-year testing. They want to do something like a year and a half, and they want to push surveillance. They want everyone to have a phone app that tracks them, whether they're infected, whether they have immunity, whether they have a vaccine. And in the case of Bill Gates, they want to have this digital currency where you have to get the microchip implanted in your hand so that you can use it. And another interesting thing too is in Nancy Pelosi's original stimulus bill, the COVID-19 economic stimulus bill, there was a provision in there for the creation of a digital dollar. So put 2 and 2 together. You got Bill Gates patented this digital currency with the biometric activation, and then you have Nancy Pelosi trying to get a digital dollar established. So put 2 and 2 together. They're interrelated. The media doesn't say so, but use your head. Especially if you pride yourself on being an intelligent college graduate, use your head. So again, the cure is on the way. And I think with other things going on in the astrology, you had Jupiter and K2 in Sagittarius for a long time together. A window opened for really amazing medical breakthroughs and radical new treatments that, in my opinion, are going to be safe and natural and holistic. They're not going to have side effects of anal leakage, anal bleeding, death, vomiting of organs. They're going to be safe and natural and really good for you. So, and there's so much disclosure going on right now. The media is trying to spin this whole hack. So it was, I think yesterday, I'm making this video on Wednesday the 22nd. There was a hack. There was a group called USA Hackers, and they hacked the servers of the Gates Foundation, the NIH, the World Health Organization, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And they released emails and passwords and documents. And the media is trying to say that these are right-wing hackers that did this. And what these hackers are trying to do is bring out some transparency about what's going on, because there's a lot of unanswered questions that the media doesn't want to talk about. Especially when you consider this Harvard professor who was arrested, who had a Chinese spy who was one of his research assistants. He'd been getting paid by the Chinese to set up a lab in Wuhan, and he'd been getting paid to smuggle biological samples to China. So many ins and outs to this. Dr. Fauci, when he was at National Institutes of Health, they were paying the Chinese to study live viruses. So there's a law in the United States where you can't create dangerous viruses for the purposes of study. So they were doing that. They were paying the Chinese to do it at the Wuhan lab. There's a top-level biosecurity biolab about 20 miles out of Wuhan. So, a lot of people say that these details are fake news, but there are Nobel Prize winners talking about this stuff. There's a Nobel Prize winner who discovered the HIV virus, who's saying that COVID-19 is man-made, it's synthesized, it's a bunch of different viruses put together. It's not naturally occurring. So you can't just say that, one Nobel Prize winner is an idiot and a quack, but then this other Nobel Prize winner is a genius. So it doesn't work that way. Especially to be liberal, you have to look at all information and judge things on their merits and not have wild emotional reactions. Liberal doesn't mean strictly left-wing. It actually means middle of the road and well-informed and well-read, and most importantly, open-minded. So I'm not talking about the AOC meaning of liberal. I'm talking more about the Thomas Jefferson meaning of it, or the MLK version of, you know, what liberal really is. So anyway, we're going to start seeing this whole thing blow over, and we're going to see a lot of disclosures, and we're going to see a lot of people's hands, people who thought were nice in dirty little pies, corrupt dirty little pies, and we're going to see people who we thought were bad guys are actually more good guys. They're actually trying to do good things, and they're actually trying to do the right thing. So open your mind and use your head about that. And you know, another thing I want to leave you with is, because the fear factor is so high, fear is the preferred tool for manipulation and manipulators, you know, for narcissists and sociopaths. They like to scare people to get them to do what they want. So, like I said, I drew a comparison between Dick Cheney and Bill Gates as crisis profiteers. Now, the only difference between Bill Gates and Dick Cheney is that Dick Cheney is very honest about being an asshole, and Bill Gates has a nice smile on his face, and he talks a lot of progressive jive. So the only difference between the two is Bill Gates comes off as a nice guy. Now, let me ask you, when you've been manipulated by someone in your life, were you manipulated by somebody you didn't like and somebody you couldn't stand? Or were you manipulated by somebody you liked and you trusted, and you thought you knew who that person was, but they turned out to be a selfish manipulator, a narcissistic or sociopathic manipulator? If you're honest with yourself, you were manipulated by someone you liked or you loved, and then someone you trusted. And ask yourself, anytime you've manipulated someone, and I don't care who you are, we've all manipulated somebody at some point. Whenever you manipulated someone, did you accomplish that manipulation by being a complete asshole and turning the person off to you? Or did you do it to somebody who loved you and who trusted you, thought they could trust you? Be honest with yourself about that. So the whole point is, you can't be manipulated by somebody that you don't like. So people who liked Dick Cheney during 9/11, the whole right wing and the whole pro-military crowd, they were easily manipulated by Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, George W., the whole team. Whereas the left was repulsed by them, and they questioned the whole 9/11 response. Do we really need this Patriot Act? Do we really need to invade Afghanistan? Do we really need to invade Iraq? So now that there's this crisis, and the profiteers, like Bill Gates, now that they're left-wing and they talk progressive, now all the people, all the left-wing progressive people who asked questions about 9/11 are not asking any questions about Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci and the World Health Organization. And they're acting as the thought police to anyone who questions the whole COVID-19 narrative. Just like the right-wing people acted as thought police towards anyone who questioned the 9/11 official narrative. So it's the same thing. But it's just these two crisis responses, whether you're talking about 9/11 or COVID-19, are appealing to a person of different disposition and a person of different political preference. And all political preference is what type of narcissism that you subscribe to, whether it's aggressive narcissism or passive-aggressive narcissism. So be honest with yourself on this one, and don't get manipulated just because somebody seems nice and somebody seems genuine and heroic and progressive and all this shit. So take that on board, think about it, food for thought. And another thing we have going on too, last thing I'm going to leave you with. I don't want to run this too long. We have a new moon tonight. So it's a new moon in Aries. So new moons, the sun and the moon line up. And we also have Uranus in the mix. So Aries deals with our heads. It's the first sign of the zodiac. It's your head. It's what's in your head. Sun is the soul and moon is the mind. So mind is not just the intellect, but it's your personality, your emotions, your memories, the whole intangible caboodle of, yourself. So, and the whole thing with new moons is that they clear the slate. So this new moon is helping us clear the slate of what's been in our heads. And you get sun and moon lining up, so soul and mind, sun and moon, are reuniting, and the soul is basically kind of huddling up with the mind and saying, okay, here's who we really are. Here's who you really are on your soul level. Let's get things on one page again. And so basically the moon, the mind, is getting the slate cleaned on the new moon and kind of doing that huddle up with the sun or the soul. Now, you also have Uranus in the mix. Uranus is the planet that overturns things. Uranus is the eccentric one. Most of the planets have this vertical axis. Uranus has a horizontal one. It's 90 degrees to the rest of the planets. Uranus is the oddball. And Uranus is basically the person who comes in, and if you're playing Monopoly, he just flips the whole board over. And he kind of smirks at you, and he's like, deal with it. There's nothing you can do. So another thing Aries is all about, being the first sign, it's about leadership. So Uranus, being in Aries, is overturning leadership, and it's helping us to basically demand a new quality of leader and a new quality of leadership in this world. And really, we haven't had leadership in a very long time. It's been centuries. So we've been getting basically coerced by people who've stolen power from us. So that's a hell of a mix with Sun and Moon and Uranus all together in Aries. So in these hacks, a lot of that stuff going on, it's helping to change the nature of leadership in our world and to clean the slate of our minds of what we expect from leadership and what we tolerate from leadership. So, and some other things too here, as we have this new moon going on, we've got Venus and Taurus. Venus, the goddess, is in our home, and Venus is caregiving and medicine, nursing, even physicians in a lot of ways. Venus is all about quality and health and just having things being as good a quality as possible. And we also, right now, on this day, we have a Kalasarpa Yoga. So that's when all the planets are on one side of the Rahu-Ketu axis. And when you have that, it means you're living in very fated and destined times. So you put all this together, we're at a turning point here in the world, in our own lives and in the world. And another thing you have too is in the sign of Capricorn, you have a pile up of planets here. You have Saturn and Pluto, who are basically giving government and all the institutions of the world a reality check, and basically they are driving the collapse of government that's happening right now so that we can have a newer, better form of government. And it's not going to be the Republican version or the Democrat version or the right-wing version or the left-wing version. It's going to be something new. And we're entering the age of Aquarius, which is the age ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So it's more decentralized, more egalitarian, less hierarchical. So as we leave Pisces, we leave hierarchy. We've been in this kind of in-between zone, so people have been sort of scrambling and they want more collectivism, communism. Really, communism is an outgrowth of, church Christianity that the Roman Empire set up. So these collectivisms are dying, and this egalitarianism, this decentralized egalitarianism, is slowly going to take shape. And the age of Aquarius lasts for 2,000 years. So this is a very gradual process. And the last thing going on here is that we have Jupiter in Capricorn. Jupiter is a guru of the cosmos. Guru is the Sanskrit word for Jupiter. So Jupiter is a teacher of deep wisdom. Now Jupiter in Capricorn is debilitated. It's the weakest possible place. The opposite sign, Cancer, from Capricorn, is where Jupiter is exalted. So Cancer is the chest. And we all have a guru that lives in us. Your soul lives in your heart. And that is supposed to be our foremost authority in our life. We listen to our hearts, and it never steers us wrong. Your heart never tells you to hurt somebody. Your fear tells you to do that. Your fear tells you to steal, to be selfish, but your heart doesn't. So with Jupiter in Capricorn opposite the heart, which is the sign Cancer, we're not listening to our hearts, to our inner guru. We're out there trying to search for outer gurus, someone who's going to make these situations all better, who's going to make COVID-19 go away, make Donald Trump go away, make Nancy Pelosi go away. But it's not going to work like that. To make the world better, you're going to have to listen to your heart, all of us, to the inner guru. So, and that's why there's the whole fake news witch hunt, where people just can't deal with information out there that's not quality, that's not accurate. They have to turn it into a witch hunt. And they want government to make it a law that it's a criminal penalty to put inaccurate information in print or on the internet. So all that stems from people just not listening to their hearts and their own inner wisdom and looking for someone outside themselves to do that. And when you look for someone outside yourself to tell you what to do, you're basically a slave. So think about this and, listen to your own heart and you'll see the truth of it. So I don't want to talk anymore. I'm going to leave that there. But thanks for tuning in. If you want to see how all these current events affect you, how the 2020s, the year 2020 and this decade will affect you, get in touch with me for Vedic astrology reading. I'm doing 50% off right now on all my readings. I know people are kind of hard up right now, so I want to help people out. I want to help people get this service. So 50% off any reading, astrology readings, rune readings. With these readings, I build you a meditation so you can basically reprogram your unconscious mind to help you to get out of self-sabotaging behaviors and get yourself onto a better track. And I also have some video downloads for sale, some Qigong. I have Celestial Qigong and Thor's Hammer Qigong. These are mind-body practices that help you to boost your energy, improve your immune system, and just calm your mind and basically find your center. Again, listen to your inner guru. So, anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.